Hey, Ram. So the agenda today, I saw Brian logged off again, is really just to see if there are any opens on the spec, and that we're sort of in a holding pattern until we get that out the door. Can you hear me? You can, right, Ram? Or Andrew?
Yes. Hi,
Yeah.
Papi. We can
Hey.
hear you.
That's about it.
Yeah, from my side, I don't have any open questions.
Okay.
So yeah, I just joined in to see if there are any other discussions happening.
Okay, let me check on the progress of the CLA. This is a busy month for OCP, unfortunately. So it's like, Andrew, you didn't have a chance to read it, did you?
No, I haven't seen the document. Did you? Have you sent out a new link to it, or
Oh,
just the same old link?
it probably happened when you're on vacation. Okay, hang on.
I think so. Yeah.
Give me 1 second. I just need to log into. I'm not a fan of two-factor authentication, man. No, it's the same link. Let me pull it up again. But I sort of finished everything everything we agreed to, and it's just if you guys don't have any changes, you'll have to sign a CLA with your. I think Michael sent you the CLA.
Yeah, I got that, and I've contacted our legal people.
Give me 1 sec. So I need to find. Yeah. Excuse me for 1 second. Let me just chase the CLA down. Okay, so let me find the document. This document here, I'll put the link again. Where the heck? Oh man, it has gone. It's been 3 weeks, so it's like buried deep in the. Here's the link. But basically, the only action I'm waiting for is if you gentlemen have any comments, and I will update the deck. This one here.
Okay.
And let me also share my screen. This is it. As far as I know, I put in everything that we agreed to. And I left it at that. So it goes until basically. Yeah, from here on, it's deleted. So until this point, until page 14. So if you, so the only things we need to do are sign the CLA, get your organizations to sign the CLA, and then make any changes to this, and then after that we sort of put it on autopilot. The only new topic I can think of that's maybe worth our time right now while this is pending is whether it's worth looking at security die to die or just borrow someone else's scheme in the link layer. Is there any other topics you can think of that we should address in the link layer before we? Well, my two favorite ones are we need a streaming protocol and we need a die to die. Maybe we need security. It'd be nice to have like a simple, straightforward streaming protocol, which don't. Ela tells me David spec covers it, and I keep looking through it, and I don't find an easy one. So maybe you guys have an opinion on that.
So a streaming protocol, like something, sorry, this is just in the transaction layer.
Yes.
So you're talking as a new activity to go.
Yeah, if there's sort of the new thing that we do something else in my head, or streaming protocol, maybe security and authentication. That's about it. Other than that, we need for the specs we have to settle in, so to speak.
I think yeah, I agree. We need to set the specs we have to settle in. I can't remember noticing whether I did look through all the link specs that you had, and I didn't remember streaming protocol kind of sticking out.
Yeah, so let me pull it up.
I mean, so the whole thing is kind of a streaming protocol.
It is, yeah.
So I'm not sure whether you really, if you're assuming you're having custom controllers on the other side anyway for streaming, then there's not a lot of reason necessarily to have a standardized one, because really the whole thing David is doing there is, it's just a specific packet size with like a ready act, right? Which we then, we bolt on buses and stuff like that onto that, but it's not really, there's not another. I'm not sure whether it makes if it adds a lot, having a bus interface that just puts out raw bit.
Well, my motivation was something like, how sort of at the file layer, bunch of wires basically standardized. Okay, here's how you take X number of bits and move them to the other side. There's not really a whole lot of standardization beyond that, and you can make custom extensions. And I'm wondering whether there's reason to do a link layer version of that. If all you want to do is a bus at this frequency and you want to move it across with no extra virtual wires, here's a protocol which you can use as a framework.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it would follow the same kind of bus mapping stuff that we did in the other one. So I think anybody that wants to do one like that would be free to propose a bus mapping that we did with the AXI and everything.
Yeah, so it might be that's simple and straightforward. Just actually doing a 2-pager clarifying that, like for something like an A to D controller or something simple, is what I was thinking was worth doing. At least that's my opinion. I'm asking you guys. So,
hey guys, this is Tony. Sorry, I'm driving. I just got in.
wait, Tony, you're in the link. You wanted to join the link layer meeting?
Oh, I'm sorry. Isn't this the CDX?
I think are you in the central time zone or something? You're off by an hour.
Oh, no, I'm not. Okay. Oh, you're right. Sorry about that.
No
all right,
worries,
good.
man.
So I'm not late. All
No,
right,
you're not
sorry
late.
about that.
You're not late at all.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye.
Anytime, man.
All right.
So Bharti, going back to the streaming protocol, right? I think I believe I saw something on the lines of some raw packet format. I don't recall now. I need to go back and look at the spec.
Okay, let me share it.
Yeah, any
Give me 1
raw
second.
packet format support probably means that we can easily market that as streaming protocol.
Okay.
But
1
that
second.
said, I think yeah, I mean, in my opinion, I think even UCI specifies the streaming protocol support, which I believe is more like a marketing term rather than an implementation term, because unless the other side also understands that same protocol, there is no interoperability per se. Meaning, if you
Right.
define a particular streaming protocol on one side, the other side also needs to understand what kind of raw data that is being sent across.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, streaming is analogous with proprietary, but the real reason they have
Right.
streaming is because they're only doing, PCIe and CXL and things like that, right? So, I mean, the fact that there's no AMBA or anything like that, which is the reason they're really doing streaming. But we have bus mappings for AMBA and stuff like that, and the hope was that anybody that wanted to add a bus would just publish their bus, you know, like the bus mappings we have, right? The streaming would be another layer of complications that you would do on top of that. So, and you would add inefficiency to the system too by doing a raw streaming bus, since you're putting a bus mapping on top of a bus mapping rather than just bus mapping directly. There just hasn't been a lot of reason, but just the reason there's not
Right.
enough publication of that.
So what you're saying is that the UCIe streaming mode is like our link layer, that it's just a basis on which you can layer more complicated
Kind of,
protocols on
yeah.
top.
I mean,
Yeah.
they're pulling it out as a bus, right? We're not
Okay.
exposing that interface because it's, you know, it's just another complication, really. But they don't have another option for it, since they're the only thing they're exposing is they're not allowing people to add their own buses, and we are allowed to allow people to add their own buses because we're not specifying, you know, as a hard requirement that bus interface into the system, or the full protocol level, really.
Right.
So what's the final verdict? I'm gonna, like, should we propose some kind of a streaming transaction layer saying if you're going to have like an n-bit bus and you're going to
No, I think Brian's convinced me nothing that we don't do that.
we don't do that?
Well, I mean, the only reason to propose anything is because you want both people to follow both sides of a standard, and streaming is the exact opposite of that, right? So because even if I follow streaming, what I'm putting across the bus is not really anything, right? So it almost makes sense for, if people want to do something different, that they just publish what they did, and then that becomes the de facto standard.
Wait, what? Say that? Well, yeah, but so then somebody's going to publish something, right?
Sure.
But isn't that like, so what's the argument against doing, if somebody has to publish something at some point?
Because
What am I
a
missing?
streaming protocol, like just raw bits across the bus, doesn't promote any kind of standard at all, right? Because you have to know what's happening with those bits. It's much more informative for somebody to publish them that says, this is what I'm doing with bit 1, this is what I'm doing with bit 2, and then you go forward. Our protocol layer is a streaming protocol in effect, right? You don't really necessarily need another one.
Okay. Maybe I'll come back with a specific design case. Something doesn't add up in my head, that if you have like an ASIC with a 1000-bit bus and you have another ASIC with a 500-bit bus, is there any way of sort of saying, okay, one is at twice the frequency of the other? I mean, or am I contorting such a corner case that it's not meaningful?
You could design an interface that looks like that, but that sounds like a very specific, it doesn't sound like a generic bus would be solving in that case.
Okay, that's what, yeah, so that it is a corner case I'm contorting. Okay. All right.
Yeah, so I think if you had that, you would do your own bus mapping and you would publish that bus mapping.
I see. Okay. And your specific cases like A to D converters or something like that, we don't need to do anything for those kinds of use cases where we have like raw data being produced on one side and being shoveled to the other. I'm asking you, I'm not complaining.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I mean, we kind of do that ourselves, right? But we've done that in a case ourselves, but I don't think we even used a link layer, just used BOW, right? I don't know. I mean, it would be better if we had something more specific that considered more aspects of that case rather than just, you know, quote unquote streaming. Because quote unquote streaming means you're overlaying another protocol on top of it, right? If you want like a raw data transfer mode that's specifically for something like that, we should think through what other technical issues somebody might have and what other information they might need alongside that and propose something in that. I don't think, and I have no problem with that, but I think the concept of a streaming protocol that's not what that is.
Got it. Okay.
There are people in ADI who've been proposing or discussing in the UCIe forum HT converter interfaces, and that I think their interest is is the real-time aspect and having really accurate timestamps coming across the interface, and they felt that these interfaces as they stand don't support that, so you'd need to have something on the HT side which was timestamping the samples, and so you know that's what was being transmitted. Which suggests that there is a whole, another set of requirements which we wouldn't capture if we tried to address that without getting an HT converter specialist.
Right, and yeah, I thought of I've had to think about very similar things for debug timestamps. Actually, probably not the same level of accuracy, but you probably want some additional controller intelligence there too. If you're trying to transmit timestamps and keep them synchronized and stuff.
Okay, so do we just wait for the UCI guys to figure it out and say do what they do roughly?
Well, again, I think if somebody has a specific use case, we can go ahead and talk about that, and maybe somebody can draft up a bus mapping. I'm just saying that it doesn't make sense to do a generic one because it isn't promoting. There's no standardization in a generic interface, and there's not and we don't have the same reasons driving us to UCIe made a streaming protocol for a specific reason, and we don't have those reasons.
You're saying something like, okay, a 32-bit A to D converter, something specific, or a class of n-bit A to D converters.
Yeah. If somebody wanted to give us requirements for what that would look like, I think we could do a bus mapping. I don't think it's a problem. I'm just saying that's probably more than just some raw bits.
So in my opinion is I think we should allow proprietary bus mapping at the least, because there could be some vendors out there who may want to who may have their own internal bus fabric, and they would want to use BOW and be compliant with the BOW link layer spec. So maybe it does make sense if we provide capability in the spec to also use some proprietary bus protocol that is otherwise not defined in the spec. Otherwise, it's going to be very hard for people to adopt it as such, because then what it would mean is they need to map their internal bus fabric into some known bus fabric that is supported by the BOW spec, and then do the reverse operation on the other side. So that may not be as appealing as directly transferring their own bus protocol over BOW.
Yeah, at the moment, the bus mappings themselves, like the transport protocol is all established, and but the actual bus mappings and stuff like that are all more kind of like suggestions than are requirements in my mind in the spec. Like we're saying, hey, these are a good way to go that we did, right? But these are not requirements to my knowledge. You just need to agree with the two sides need to agree, which is basically the same thing as a streaming protocol, which is
Exactly. I mean, that is what I also recall. That's why I mentioned to Bapi before that I think we do support streaming protocol, although we don't explicitly say that. But yeah, I mean, if we are only suggesting and we are not saying, okay, this is what must be done, then in some sense, I think, yeah, we do support streaming protocol, because we are not forcing end users to follow only supported profiles.
So basically what we're saying is maybe where we can sort of say something like, okay, if you're going to do a streaming protocol, here's how you could do it. Here's some guidance on how you do it. Is that what you're thinking?
I think the statement is we are already doing a streaming protocol in that's what the spec is. It's
Right,
just we're
but
not.
there's some sense that I think it's fair to say that if somebody wants to do a proprietary protocol, you'd have to do a lot of reading and trying to figure out how you do it. And maybe we don't standardize the protocol, but we just kind of say, okay, here's how you do it if you're off to
Again, I think if you're doing a proprietary protocol, it is implementation specific anyway, right? And so you're going to be you're going to need to talk to whoever you're getting your controller from, right? Because I think, like if somebody wants to provide a streaming interface into that packet interface, as long as both sides are following the same packet interface, it doesn't matter what the bus looks like, right? But but that, again, like you were saying earlier, one side might be wider than the other and things like that, right? But so long as they're packing the same way they can communicate. So I think that's an implementation decision. That's if you wanted to do another layer, with streaming and having another outside protocol that layers on top, that's an implementation detail, not necessarily a standard problem. Because really what you're doing is you're taking the protocol layer and chopping it in half, right? You're turning it into you're taking one controller and turning it into two controllers, right? That's what streaming protocol does.
yes.
And so us standardizing the interface between those two controllers, I'm saying is doesn't sound like a priority. In my opinion, it's not a priority. I think that's an implementation detail.
Right, but there is, if I understand Ram correctly, yes, you can do streaming. Maybe so I'm not suggesting you do it, but I'm simply saying maybe there is merit in putting some kind of a guide together, saying if you want to do your own streaming protocol, here's the steps to do it. That just as a user guide, not necessarily as something to be standardized. That we're assuming, hey, you want to give people guidance on here's how. Oh crap. Okay. So we're not going to. It looks like we're sort of. The general consensus is no for a streaming protocol right now. I have two other questions. One, are you guys going to be able to publish any public profiles, or you're not? I'm asking, and not. There's some movement that we would publish a separate document of profiles, or are those going to be shared under NDA only?
VeriSilicon doesn't have anything additional to publish other than what we've already donated.
Okay. Now, is there
in terms of profile,
any support from ARM for any of this, or because they're off onto the races and doing they're announcing their own mapping of the coherence protocols. So
no, I think we didn't reach out to them, but I was under the impression that other people did, and we never really got a response back.
So do we need to reach out, or we're in good shape without really reaching out to them?
I don't necessarily think we need their permission, so long as there was some wording, I believe, that Gary had that we needed to follow, or that NXP recommended you follow to do not hit trademark issues, I think.
Right.
But I don't know. We never really followed up with that. I don't know.
Okay. So, but I guess technically, maybe the question I'm asking is technically, are there any glaring opens, or do we need their permission for anything? I'm hearing a no so far.
I don't know. We don't really describe. We don't really, like, in the document that I worked on. We don't really like describe the AXI bus protocol. We're really just talking about why we did certain things and where those bits go, right? So I don't see why. I can't imagine ARM having too big of an issue about what we did there. Just, people publish things like that all the time that have way more detail that don't have a.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not copying any parts of their spec or anything like that. To be clear.
So you're plunking on we're in reasonable shape without them. Yeah, I'd say if I had to apply it down to yes
Right.
or
I
no.
would love their blessing, or at least their double checking of the work, but I haven't seen anything in that regard.
Got it. So Ram, you're saying something?
Yes, so I kind of agree with Brian on that we need that blessing, because in previous companies where I have worked on AXI, we went through the same exercise on whether we can use the Axi bus freely or not, and their licensing terms are a little vague. In the sense that they say that the AMBA protocol is free to use, but they also put a clause that as long as there is an ARM CPU in the chip somewhere. So I mean, yeah, it is better to get a confirmation from them. I mean, if we are going to specify AXI anywhere in our spec, then it is better to get that clarification from them that we are not forcing end users to also
Well, we're
adopt
not.
some ARM CPU in their system.
Yeah, these are optional. I mean, these are suggested bus mappings that if you're going to use AXI, this is how you get it across the bus, right? This is how you map the bus to packets, but it's not a requirement for the specification.
Okay. Okay, then that's fine. I mean, yeah, because I just wanted to make a point that, I mean, if we give an impression that the end user needs to use Axi, then there are other implications that the end user may have to think through. So yeah, I think Brian is probably also referring to something on the same lines.
Okay, let's do one thing then. I have to hop off at 9:30 today, but maybe okay. So then if we, sorry, let me organize my thoughts. Two questions. One, Brian, you said you guys have published something, right? Right now, that's just sort of an open shared document, correct? That's not like an OCP contribution or something.
As far as I understand, it was a contribution. We signed a document when we did the specification, right? So I don't think
Would you mind
it
sending me?
it was. I haven't published it anywhere else. I've just sent it to the email list.
Right. Okay. You send it to the email list. So if we wanted to, let's say we wanted to publish this like a spec, the way we did the transaction link list specification, it hasn't crossed that threshold, right?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if anybody else has reviewed it outside this group.
Okay. So let me rephrase it then. So we should review it, and then would you have any objections to reviewing it and then publishing it like the way this spec is published?
No, it was fine. It was submitted under the intention that it gets put as like an appendix or something like that, or an addendum.
All right. So then that's the next. That's one on addendum. Okay. So then the second thing is if we want to take a shot at a blessing from ARM, then maybe I can't make next week unless you guys can. Maybe Elad can drive this on his own next week. I can ask him. And I have a conflict for next week, either on the 5th of October. We need to work out a specific ask that I can take to OCP management, and then they can ask ARM, we need this from you. ARM's sort of re-engaging with us, with ODSA. They're kind of presenting at the Global Summit, etc. Are either of you going to be at the Global Summit by any chance? You, Brian, or Ram?
Goodness gracious, when is it?
October. Hang on. October 17th, 18th, and 19th. So we have a chiplet session, and then we have the experience center. But if you're there, maybe if before the Global Summit, we can work it out. We can sort of corner the ARM guys and say, hey, are you interested in helping us? Rather than do it by an email chain.
Let me get back to you. I don't think so. 1 second. I'm trying to make sure I don't have anything conflicting.
Ram, you going to be attending the summit by any chance?
I didn't have a plan to. I didn't have a plan, but yeah, I can attend if there is a need.
So let's do this then. So I'll ask Elad if he can do it. If not, on the 5th of October, maybe we can burn the 9 a.m. meeting on narrowing down a very specific ask, because I still don't understand properly, and maybe you can write down and put it in writing and then share it and say, hey, this is what we want from ARM, and see whether they're interested in blessing it. Will that work for you guys?
Yes, for me.
Yeah.
Okay. So on that bright note, since you shot down my streaming protocol, I'm going to go sulk for some time and come back with something else. Please.
So I will be at the OCP summit. I'm sorry. I was trying to remember if yeah. I think we do. I think I talked to my admin. Yeah, we're doing that already.
Okay,
so, yeah,
fantastic.
So I'll be there.
Okay, super. All right. So we've got D-Matrix and 10 other companies exhibiting as well on the OCP Experience Center. And then what else? That's basically it. I'll save security for a follow-on. Then we have to talk about that document that you push around and see whether we can publish that as a spec. And finally, please read the control path spec if you can. At least tell me if there's anything in there that needs to be changed. All of you have the link. And the CLA, we'll see. I think the Lawrence Berkeley Lab guys came back with some suggested changes. I'm going to see if that makes any changes in the CLA. If it doesn't, at least please let's see if we can get this thing signed. That's it. I'm done at my end. I think we covered everything. So I know we got to speak about this ARM ask in 2 weeks.
Did you send out a new email about that signature? I don't think I ever got another one.
I thought you'd have received it from Michael Show. You'd have received a link to a CLA from Michael Show. He's the guy who would have sent it to you.
Okay. Oh no, never mind. That's somebody else. The only email I have from him is a
Oh no, there's no change. There's no changes. I'm an idiot. Okay, never mind. They don't want any changes.
So the one we signed earlier is still fine, right? Because I'm pretty sure we signed it like a while back.
It's pretty much the same thing. But what happens is you have to sign. So this thing is a bit messy and complicated. So in theory, what happens is all these specs are to be developed in confidence. But the ODSA, being the open and welcoming organization it is, sort of just does everything out in the open. And then we sort of say, okay, let's go sign a CLA to say we're developing the spec, and then we develop the spec, etc. And then after the spec is approved, we sign a final spec agreement. But each separate specification requires a separate CLA. So the previous one was for the transaction link layer. This one is for the control path spec. If we release your document, that will really require another CLA, and so on.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have a new I don't have a new email from Michael. Maybe I'm not the guy from VeriSilicon on that.
Oh, hang on. I tell you, hang on. Give me 1 sec. I know what happened. Give me 1 second. Here, look at this document. I think I should. No, he said here. Okay, I'll ask Michael. This document is the one I sent to everyone. This is this had you. VeriSilicon, Brian Murray. Okay, let me see. Let me send Michael an email. Okay, I will send Michael an email and ask him to CC you. But you should have, maybe it's in your spam something. But I'm pretty. Did you guys got it right? And Ram and Andrew, you got an email from Michael?
Yes.
Okay,
I think so.
So then it's just a Brian thing. Okay.
Yeah, it might just be me. I'll check my spam and stuff too.
Okay. All right, then I'll send it. All right, I got to hop. Thanks all. So if Elad can run the meeting next week, you guys will do it. Otherwise, for sure, on the 5th, we will tackle this idea of what our ask from ARM is. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
right, thanks.
Bye.